How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. Today I want to explain what the Bitcoin halving is. I realize a lot of people don't fully understand it. I've seen even some billionaires talk about it, and they don't understand what's happening when we hit the Bitcoin halving. Right now, it's scheduled for April 20, so be on the lookout for that date, but we're going to walk through it really simply. It's not as complicated as it sounds. If you don't mind though, before we get started, hit subscribe. Turn on that bell notification right underneath the video. It's right next to the subscribe button. That way you can see future videos just like this. There's also going to be a link underneath the video to Margex in case you want to start trading cryptocurrency with leverage. You can check out that link. I've done some videos explaining what this is, but you can start doing it on Margex and you get a deposit bonus. Now, let's get into what the Bitcoin halving is. So let's start with Bitcoin miners. So there are miners all across the world. All different people hold them. All different kinds of companies hold them. There are companies that just have Bitcoin miners and continue to buy more and more Bitcoin miners. There are probably millions of these across the world. Now, what they do is they complete complex calculations and validate transactions on the network. So someone wants to go send a Bitcoin. These miners are fighting to try to validate that transaction. They record it on the digital ledger so everyone in the world can see it because it is written down by these miners. And when they do that, there's something called a block reward that's paid out. Basically, it's a reward given to a miner to validate those transactions or to complete that calculation. That's basically what it is in a nutshell. So all these miners are trying to validate transactions and one's paid out a certain amount of Bitcoin for doing so. Now that block reward is what they call it. That happens about every 10 minutes. It's not exactly 10 minutes, but it's about every 10 minutes and it's paid in Bitcoin. Now, right now, that block reward is about 6.25 Bitcoin. So at the time of this recording, maybe about $400,000, $450,000. This means that if that happens every 10 minutes, which it does just about every 10 minutes, that there are about 900 Bitcoin that are mined a day. Now, the halving takes place and it's programmed into the network. Everyone can go look at the code for Bitcoin so you can verify this, but it happens about every 4 years because it happens every 210,000 blocks. Now this means that's scheduled for April 20, 2024. Now what exactly is this? Well, some people think that it's when the supply of Bitcoin gets cut in half. That's not true. Right now there are 19.665 million Bitcoin in circulation. This does not mean that there's going to be all of a sudden 9.7 million Bitcoin in circulation. No, the same amount of circulating supply is here, but then the new Bitcoin that's being mined by these miners gets cut in half. So instead of 6.25 Bitcoin being paid out as a block reward, it's 3.125. A few years ago, instead of 6.5, it was 13 Bitcoin. So this does not affect the total supply of Bitcoin by cutting in half. That's not how it works. Again, it's just cutting the new supply of Bitcoin. So think of it as an inflation rate. Right now, there's about 1.67% inflation because right now we have 19.67 million Bitcoin, but there's 900 new Bitcoin a day. Multiply that throughout the whole year, close to 330,000 new Bitcoin are mined every single year. But after the halving takes place, instead of 330, it's more like 165,000. So instead of 1.67% inflation to the Bitcoin network, it's going to be 0.84%. Some people call this the stock to flow, basically how much is flowing in, how much new supply there is versus the stock or how much there already is of that asset. So this would put the inflation rate below that of the US dollar. It would put it under that of real estate. It would put it under the stock to flow of gold as well. And it will be about another 100 years before the last Bitcoin is mined. It's actually 2140. But at that point, we don't have to really worry about that. There are still other ways that miners are going to get paid because they can get tipped as well. Now, to be clear, there's nothing you need to do. So when this Bitcoin halving happens on April 20, you don't have to send your crypto anywhere. You don't have to sell. You don't have to do anything, right? All you have to do is hold or sell or whatever you want to do, right? You don't have to put it anywhere to get it halved or anything like that. And I'm just saying that because some people will try to scam you. If you hold cryptocurrency, they'll try to scam you saying that you have to send your crypto here, otherwise the halving won't take place or something like that. That's not true. And some people think of this as like a stock split, right? It's not a stock split either. Some people compare it to a stock split. Stock split might be where some company stock, let's say it's Google, is $100 and they want to cut it a 2-for-1 stock split. So now you're going to get double the shares, but the price is going to go down to $50. Basically, basically just taking all the shares and cutting them up into smaller pieces. That's not what's happening here with Bitcoin, because it's not like you get double the Bitcoin and the price is half. That's not what happens. Again, it's just to do with the supply. Now, the supply right now is about 93.65% mined. So as time goes on, it becomes more and more scarce. So I guess the question on a lot of people's minds is, why is the Bitcoin halving even good for Bitcoin? If it's not cutting down the amount of supply, the overall supply, why is this fundamentally bullish for Bitcoin holders? Well, one, it cuts down on the amount of Bitcoin that miners can sell. So miners are one of the bigger sellers of Bitcoin in the market. You might be saying, why is that? Because, I mean, there's some of the people that should be more bullish on Bitcoin if they're spending money to try to get more Bitcoin. Well, you have to remember, they have a lot of expenses. They have to buy more miners a lot of the time. They have to pay for electricity. They have salaries of employees. They have properties. They have maintenance. They have cooling systems. They have all types of things that they have to pay for. So how do they pay for it? Well, they sell some of the Bitcoin that they mine a lot of the time. So that is one reason that Bitcoin halving is really bullish, is because the people that are actually getting the new supply of Bitcoin and selling a lot of it, they get half as much. So there's a lot less selling pressure. So that causes the price typically to go up. The other thing is, when the demand for Bitcoin increases, which it's been increasing over time, like there are more and more people that buy Bitcoin. We can see that the number of wallets that hold Bitcoin, there are more and more people interested in Bitcoin. It's more and more readily available. Like you can buy it in a lot more ways. You can buy ETFs now that go buy the Bitcoin for you. They're talking about it on more news stations. So as the demand increases, the supply doesn't. Right? I mean, the supply continues to increase, but at a very small rate. It's actually becoming harder and harder to get new Bitcoin. So when someone goes and buys, I don't know, 100 Bitcoin, which there are people that do that. There are people that buy 10,000 Bitcoin. There are people that buy even more than that. When they go buy 10,000 Bitcoin, they're like, okay, I'm just going to hold it for, I don't know, a couple decades. Well, there's not a lot of new Bitcoin being mined. So that person just bought 10,000 Bitcoin and basically took away the ability of a lot of other people to buy the Bitcoin at that price, at least. So there's always going to be a seller, most likely. There's always going to be someone that's willing to sell Bitcoin. But when large entities go and swallow up a lot of Bitcoin, it becomes harder and harder to buy it. The price moves up. And again, there's less and less new Bitcoin to buy. The biggest seller isn't selling as much Bitcoin. So the price typically goes up. And yeah, this is one of the only things that as the price continues to move up, you can't make more of it, right? When you think about that, it's really interesting. If the price of a certain area of real estate goes up, let's say, the price of homes in Miami skyrockets. Well, you can move next door. You can move right in the outskirts of town. They can also build higher buildings. They can build more skyscrapers, which kind of, I don't want to say forces down the price of the properties, but there's not really a true scarcity, right? There are always other options and they can always make more of it. Same thing with gold, right? People think gold's a scarce substance, but if all of a sudden gold's price doubles, you better believe they're going to try to mine gold in more places where they know there's some gold, but it's not quite profitable to mine there. Maybe there's not quite enough, or maybe it's hard to get to. They will go and mine it if the price doubles. But for Bitcoin, if the price doubles, you can't really do anything about it. You can't mine more Bitcoin. There's a set amount of Bitcoin. So what does this usually do to price? We don't really know what's going to happen short term, but typically this is something that's very bullish. In 2016, this caused a massive price rally. In 2020, this caused a massive price rally. It usually happens afterwards, after the halving. We're already seeing a nice price rally though before the halving. So this is fundamentally bullish for Bitcoin, but in the short term, anything can happen. Now, if this was helpful to understand the Bitcoin halving, let me know down below in the comments section. Also, let me know by hitting subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate it. Check out those links to Margex underneath the video. And if you want to know what I'm buying and selling, there is a link to the Patreon underneath the video as well. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.